Welcome back into Punk Uncle's kitchen. Today, I've got a really cool video for you. We're making meatloaf burgers. So grab yourself something to drink, hit the subscribe button, and pay attention. You're gonna wanna see this. Before we get started, I need to pour myself a drink. It's important to stay hydrated while you cook at all times. Today we're starting, this won't be our only bottle, but we're starting with a 2018 Russian River Pinot from William Sellian, one of my favorite wineries up in the Healdsburg area, the Russian River Valley in Sonoma County. Get your hands on a bottle if you can. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna start by getting our meatloaf prepped and in the oven. I'm working with about 4.5 pounds of ground beef here. We've got some vegetables that we need to saute first, and then we'll start mixing all this together, show you exactly how it's done, and then go from there to making our actual burgers. I've got my skillet getting warmed up here. We've got olive oil in there. I'm gonna crack a little bit of black pepper. I like to season every step of the way, whether I'm cooking this or anything else really. I just like to make sure that every component that goes together is pretty well seasoned. What I've got here is 3 jalapenos, 2 shallots, and a red onion. I'm gonna start with the peppers first because they take the longest to soften as we saute. And for this particular recipe, I'm gonna completely saute these. I want them cooked down to translucent, very, very soft. I don't want this to be a textural thing in the meatloaf when it's done, just to add flavor. So I don't want any crunch on this whatsoever. These jalapenos have a pretty good sweat started on them, so I'm gonna go ahead and add some onion now that they've gotten a head start. So we'll go ahead and add the red onion. So I'll go ahead and get these mixed in and started. And then as soon as I start seeing a little bit of action on the onions, we'll add the shallots. And the last thing we'll add is garlic because that sautés very quickly and we don't want to burn that. Finally, we'll drop the shallots in here. They're a little more delicate, so they'll cook pretty quickly. Guys, check this cutting board out. This is a really nice acacia wood cutting board made by a company called Sonder out of LA. And it's 2-sided, so I've got a good juice groove on this side, and then the side that I was using earlier today is flat, so you can use this for vegetables, charcuterie, whatever you want. They call this a cracker well, so you can put crackers in here and then have your charcuterie on top if you want, but a really versatile board and a really good hard wood. I'm gonna put a link in the video description below that you can follow, or you can take the link and go to Amazon and see this board yourself. If you guys purchase anything on Amazon through my links, I actually get a commission on that, so it will help support the channel and you'll get some good stuff. I've got exactly 9 pieces of toasted white bread, just cheap Wonder Bread, you know, whatever, that kind of thing. This is a trick that I learned from my wife and her Italian family. They do this when they make meatballs. So they toast white bread, then they make a paste out of it to mix in, and that helps give the meatloaf a lighter texture so it's not so dense. It makes it more airy and just gives it a really good consistency. So we're gonna wet these and then put them in the food processor, make that paste, and then you'll see us work that into the meatloaf itself. All 9 slices are in the food processor now. They're wet, and the reason there's 9 is this goes back to the family recipe for the meatballs. They do 2 slices of bread per pound of meat. So with our 4.5 pounds, we're doing 9 slices of bread. Got to give a shout out to my mother-in-law, Rena, aka Noni. I grew up not liking meatloaf until I started dating my wife in high school, and I had Noni's meatloaf, and it was like... So what we're doing today, what I'm making today is a riff on that for sure. There's way more similarities than there are differences between my meatloaf and hers. I tweaked a few little things to kind of change it and make it my own, but definitely inspired by her meatloaf. Okay, you can see that we've got pretty good translucence on our here. So now I'm adding garlic. Planned to cut fresh garlic into this today, and then went and peeled my garlic and it was all sprouted and not great. So sometimes you got to adapt to situations in the kitchen. Fortunately, we keep minced garlic all the time. We get this at Costco, a huge jar of it, and it gets used in a lot of things. So this will work in a pinch. Vegetables are finishing up. Now we've got our bread paste, and I'm gonna show you if you can see that. You can see that it's very damp and moist, and it's turning into a ball, but it's not so saturated that it doesn't stay together. So that's basically the consistency that we're looking for. Got my paste in. I'm gonna whip or beat 6 eggs here. Usually when we do meatloaf, we kind of do 1 egg per pound of meat. Kind of a similar, thing. We have a formula for that, just like we do the bread. But I like just going a little bit past that, just adding a little bit of extra egg. I feel like it just adds a little bit more fluffiness to the texture of the meatloaf when it's done. So add some seasoning while we're here. Since we're going to be mixing, we might as well mix seasoning in at the same time. Keep it pretty simple with this, just garlic, salt, and cracked black pepper. Remember, you can always add more afterwards. And then it's just a matter of trying to really get this stuff integrated. And it takes a little while, so be patient and just keep at it. Now I'm gonna get a little bit of assistance because my hands are disgusting, and we need to add the vegetables that we sauteed, as well as we're gonna do some seasoned Italian style breadcrumbs. So I'll get my lovely assistant in here. All right, I'll start working that. If you want to grab the pan with the And while you're on screen, would you like to hit me with some more seasoning while we're at it?
Sure.
I think we're going to be getting pretty close here. Texture is starting to feel lighter, which is good. You'll notice, you'll feel the difference between the meat from when you start to when you get to this point. It will definitely have a lighter, more airier feel to it as you work it. Just a little pinch of meat, throw it back into our skillet that we used for the vegetables, and we'll go ahead and cook this real quick, and that way I can taste it and make sure that we don't want to add anything else before we go ahead and form the full loaves and start cooking those. Got a little tester piece. It's getting there. I'm going to add just a little bit more salt to it, and then we're going to be good to go start making these. This is half of the meat, so what I'm going to do is make these 2 meatloaves here. So basically, just going to hand flatten this into a big rectangle. Okay, so just kind of trying to get it, squarish edges. And the big thing is having an even thickness, and this is probably 3/4 of an inch thick, I would say, and that's about what I aim for every time I do this. So the next thing we're gonna do is our little hidden surprises. Don't get weirded out. I thought this was bizarre the first time I ever heard about it. Turned out to be the greatest meatloaf I ever ate in my life. So this is pepper jack cheese. Just buy it pre-sliced. We're gonna layer this in. Cheese layer down. Now we're gonna come back with thin, very thin deli ham. And you can this can overlap a little bit. It's not a big deal if it does. Leave yourself some room on the edges around the perimeter, because you're going to need to be able to kind of pinch those together once we roll this into loaf. Don't worry, this wants to move as you roll. Get it started and then pull it back. Pull it this way. Turn this so you can see. I'm just going to try to flatten this and make it so there's not really a clear edge here. Sort of weld the meat back together. And the same thing with the ends. That's pretty good. The cheese will tend to want to ooze out as it bakes, which is cool to a point, but you want to limit that as much as possible. You don't want to lose all of it when it bakes. So what I'm going to do now is I'd make sure that it's sealed up and I've got the meat kind of like re-squished together. And then when I put it in the pan here, I'm going to go, this was the side that had the seam on the bottom. So I'm going to put that on the bottom. That way that the weight of the loaf kind of holds that closed as it bakes. All right, one down, one to go. Okay, last touch before these go in the oven. Just gonna add a little steak sauce. So you can use A1 or your favorite steak sauce. You can do barbecue sauce as well. And this is not something I would ever use on steak, but I will use it on meatloaf. This is just gonna add some of that kind of pepperiness and Worcestershire richness to the top of this, and it'll kind of form a glaze as it bakes. We've got our oven preheated to 350. These will probably take about an hour. I'll set it for 45 and check them then. All right, going in. Set it for 45. We'll see what they're looking like after that. While the meatloaf is cooking in the oven, we're prepping some sides and condiments to go with these burgers. So let me give you a look at what we're doing here. Say hello to my man Dickie from Dickie's Kitchen, soon to be famous on YouTube. Dickie is prepping some home fries. So these are straight russets. He's got those all sliced and then dried. We've got our peanut oil heating up in the Dutch oven here. And then I'm working on an onion relish that we're gonna add to the burgers as well. Skillet's getting hot, medium heat. We'll go ahead and add some olive oil. And I've got 2 yellow onions chopped here. So I'll kind of give you the recipe as I assemble this. So far we're at 2 yellow onions and some olive oil. We're gonna saute these just like the ones we did for the meatloaf basically. And then we'll go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients to make the relish. And it's really pretty simple, but it's a cool little condiment and something a little less common to throw on your burger and give it a little bit of pizzazz. The onion relish is getting ready to complete here. You can bring it in and see we've got this nice and sauteed. I added a little bit of cracked pepper and garlic salt again. So reduce my heat. Remember we started with 2 yellow onions. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. We're gonna incorporate that and just go until it's dissolved. We're gonna add about 1.5 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. It's nice to add a little bit of red wine vinegar, but I was out, so I'm gonna go with a little bit of white Modena vinegar, which is Italian about a teaspoon. And lastly, just a little bit of red wine, about another tablespoon and a half. So that vinegar helps kind of deglaze, get all that caramelized stuff from the bottom of the pan. We'll just let that integrate for a couple minutes here, kind of thicken up, and it's done. Tell us what you're doing, Dickie.
We got our sliced, we rinsed them off for 30 minutes, got all the starch off, the excess starch off the potatoes. Now we're gonna drop them in for the first fry at 325 for about 6 minutes.
Nice. So doing a double fry on these, the first one at 325 degrees in the oil, and how long? 6 minutes, you said?
6 to 7 minutes, yeah.
Sweet.
Until they're just lightly brown.
Nikki, where are we at with these?
So we're at 6 minutes here, and they got a light brown kind of crust on them there.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to get them out then. So let it drain a little bit, and then just transfer to a pan to sit, or a bowl. And we're gonna let those hang out and kind of cool off while we throw in another batch. So we've got these back in. We raised the heat to 350. We got the second fry going on our first batch. Now they're nice golden brown color. So another 7 minutes, but raise the heat to 350. And coming out like this.
Oh baby, look at that. These guys are done. I just checked the temp. Cooked them to about 160 internal temperature. So nice and done, but it should still be plenty of moisture. And I'm gonna let these rest before I slice them. One thing I wanted to mention is that normally I would make the meatloaf the day before I was gonna do the burger. We just do like meatloaf dinner, and then the burger is really best to do with leftovers because you can refrigerate it overnight, everything tightens up, and then when you cut into slices, you'll see how I sear these for the sandwiches. That actually works better the next day, or as a leftover situation. But anyways, we're gonna let these sit and then we'll slice them and make our burgers. I'm taking slices that are like maybe a little over an inch thick, basically a nice thick burger thickness. And now we're gonna double sear them, sear both sides in a cast iron skillet. All right, we're gonna check and see if these are ready to flip. Oh yeah, see that? It's actually kind of burning and frying the cheese that was rolled into that meatloaf from the beginning. Nice little caramelized crust going. I am now placing the onion relish right on top of these. Separate a little bit. And I'll lay a slice of cheese on each one. Pepper jack here again, but you can really do whatever you want. This is definitely open to interpretation. Whole pan. Slide it in here with the broiler on low. Let that cheese melt over the top. Oh, hello, doggies. All right, let's plate these things. I'm just coming in with steak sauce. You can use barbecue sauce, a spicy ketchup, whatever floats your boat, man. One pate. Pickle's optional, and I'm always down. Topper. That's Punk Uncle's Meatloaf Burger. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more kick-ass videos like this. Thanks for being here. We're gonna eat. This stuff's getting cold. We got another couple bottles of wine to destroy, so thanks for being here, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.
That's the sound of happiness.